I'd like to call on Rappler's Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director, Maria Ressa, on how Rappler is going to be the platform of education, discussion, and debate on this movement. Maria?
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for taking time to come, and I want to push it forward so you get to what we really want you to see today, which is how our society sees women. There are all these surveys globally, but what about the Philippines? Where are we? Before I get to that, and Chai will give that to you, I want to tell you a little bit about Rappler. Rappler wants to change the world. We couldn't have existed 5 years ago because the technology didn't exist. And one of the ways we will change the world is with the use of technology. Let me show you where we are. So we made up the name Rappler. Even that, right? As a journalist, you don't make up words. So we had a huge debate. Do we make up a word to talk about serious journalism? We did. We jumped in. Because we figured, well, Google didn't really exist before, diba, as a word. So the core of Rappler is this. It's the words to rap plus ripple to make waves. And I want to talk about the ripples that are just in this room alone. Our core is professional journalism. The second circle is technology. And if you're tweeting and you're using the hashtag WHIPIT, you're seeing your ripples expand beyond this room. And then this is the last part, what technology enables. It allows us to be able to capture what I started calling online bayanihan, crowdsourcing. What is crowdsourcing? Crowdsourcing is really all of us doing one small thing to create something that wasn't there before to make a better world. And this is where Rappler stands, smack in the middle. The other technological changes are all there. We create content which is amplified by social media. Social media connects with each one of you, and with people outside the room to bring you in to the third part, which is crowdsourcing, online bayanihan. And then the last part is if you have everyone doing this small act, you create big data. And big data is the major disruptor of every industry in the world. So that's what goes into Rappler. I want to talk about why we're doing this with Pantene, why we're doing WHIPIT. Why is it time? You know, when I first heard WHIPIT, I thought, if you're my age, some of you are, you will think song, right? Okay, I will try to behave. WHIPIT has different connotations, which we threw around, right? But in the end, it's about beating something. So let me show you what social media is to me, which is in the end, it's taking your social networks on steroids. It's putting your physical social networks on steroids because it gets rid of boundaries of time and space. So here's how you create the ripples. And I'm going to show you very specifically something that is personal to me, and I guess this is part of the reason I've thrown myself into this also. This is a long time ago. It's a hostile environment training course. We're wearing chem bio warfare suits. And the reason I'm showing you this is because this person on the left here, that person, her name is Judith Torres. She was my producer at CNN. And I only found out last week that her son, Pepe Torres, conceptualized this campaign. I say it because what went into his head, I think, was part of our discussion in 1986 about why women act the way they do in our societies. Why do we accept labels? Why do we accept what other people want us to be? Why do we not chart our own path? And back then, so to show you my age, I won't, I haven't shown this to him, but he was still a baby when we were having these debates. And Judith is very, very far from a conventional Pinay. She's a fighter, and she fights for so much, sometimes too much, right? We have to know what battles we're going to fight and what battles we're going to choose to win and which battles we let go of. So that's a ripple. And last week I found out Pepe was the one who brought this campaign, and I liked the campaign even more. Why am I telling you this? So here's why WHIPIT for me and for Rappler. It's personal for every woman and man, because these gender stereotypes are built into each of us. It's part of our cultural DNA, and oftentimes we don't think about it. We just do it. We fall into the trap. The second is, there are all these social conformity experiments all around the world. What are they? They basically show the power of the group over the individual. And I'll tell you about this because I studied this when I was looking at why terrorism exists. Why do people kill themselves thinking that they're doing the right thing? One social conformity experiment I'll tell you about happened in the 1950s. It was done by a man named Solomon Asch. He basically took, let's say, the group of people in the front row, and he put them in a room and he gave them sheets of paper, and on the sheets of paper were lines. And he just asked the group to tell him what the shortest line was. Except unknown to the test subject, let's say this gentleman, Josh, I know him, so I'll use him. He's the test subject, but before he answers, he's the last person to answer the question. Everyone else will answer the exact opposite. They'll give the longest line, and by the time the test subject responds, 75% of the people who are tested will go with what the group says, even if it's obviously wrong. It's the power of groups. More than 3/4 of people will follow the group. It shows you how important peer pressure is and how peer pressure can actually change our reality, right? That's the second step, is I think we should figure out what peer pressure is, particularly in the Philippines. We travel in groups. The third, NCR study, the National Capital Region, and we chose the National Capital Region because we're supposed to be the most educated, most liberal, hopefully most open about a global landscape, right? So the NCR, that's part of the reason the study was there. And the study is with both men and women, and Chai will be telling you a lot more about it. But here's what sticks when you look at it, the big picture view. There is a difference between what we want to be and what we really are. That's what the NCR survey tells us. There is a difference between aspirational and what we're doing in our life. There's a gap between what people say and what they do. And you're going to tell me, well, that's kind of normal. It's called hypocrisy. Not really. It's not called hypocrisy if you're not aware. And that's part of the reason we're doing this, because we want people, men and women, to discuss, to debate, and in the process, we become self-aware, we educate, we question our values, and hopefully we get to a place where change does happen. I'm not the first to say it. You know this phrase. I think it was Mahatma Gandhi. Be the change you want to see. To change the world, you change yourself. And here's the last part of that NCR survey. The women do it to themselves. And I see a group of women activists who I know will tell me they don't do it to themselves. Society makes them do that. Yes and no. I guess I believe, and it's the same thing I said at the Climate Change Commission meet gathering this morning, we buy into it. And that's the last part. That's the last reason why we're doing this, because we want you to be aware of what you're buying into. This is the user engagement model of Rappler. Why Rappler? Because Rappler not just gives you information, it also measures your response. Neuroscientists say that we don't act based on what we think. We act. 80% of how we act is based on how we feel. I've spent most of my entire career thinking, trying to fight emotions, But in the end, we're writing for people who are emotional. Up to 80% of how you make decisions in your life is based on how you feel. That's what the mood meter is about. Every story on Rappler has a mood meter, and every vote on each of those stories brings you to the mood navigator, which basically puts together all the votes for the mood of the day. Once you have the mood of the day, you can look at what the month looks like, or by December, what the year looks like. That's when it becomes big data. So I just want to show you what big data looks like for the month of May, because it's interesting to me. The month of May was a happy month for the Philippines. Elections, we were happy. 77%, if you go by the data, we were happy. But look, on the 11th, on May 11th, there was a spike of happiness because we were getting ready for elections. But look on election day, on May 13th, the happiness went down and angry, red, went up, and annoyed went up because of the slow election returns. And then you see when the winners of the Senate were announced on the 22nd, 23rd, we were really happy again. There's a spike. And then look at the tail end of the month. There's that spike of red. Do you remember what made you angry at the end of the month of May? The data tells us it's not politics. It was Vice Ganda and Jessica Soho. It really angered Pinoys, our readers. So I show you this because this is the kind of data we'd like to be able to also get based on the stories that you'll be seeing on WHIPIT. Content creation, social media amplification, crowdsourcing, and then big data. We go back to this, and we're journalists. I've been a journalist all my life. Rappler is an organization whose core is journalism. But times are changing. That core of journalism is meeting technology, and we want to help women and men see the world the way it is today, to have the self-awareness to actually change it actively. Thank you.